Real Madrid did not remove Xabi Alonso because he failed to understand the club. They removed him because he understood it too well. On January 12, 2026, Real Madrid announced that Alonso's time as head coach was over by mutual agreement. The words were polite, the message was clean. But football rarely hides the truth forever. One day earlier, Madrid had lost the Spanish Super Cup final to Barcelona, 3-2. Another Clásico. Another wound. Another night where the biggest club in the world looked strangely fragile. And yet the most interesting part was not the score, it was the contradiction. Xabi Alonso had arrived as the perfect modern Real Madrid coach, a former Madrid midfielder, a Champions League winner, a coach who had turned Bayer Leverkusen from a talented team into Germany's first unbeaten Bundesliga champion, a manager who believed in control, structure, pressure, sacrifice. But at Madrid, those words became dangerous. Because Alonso did not just want stars, he wanted workers. He did not just want freedom, he wanted responsibility. And that is where the story changes. Real Madrid thought they had hired the future, but when the future asked the present to change, Madrid chose the present. They chose comfort. They chose power. They chose the dressing room. And the man who saw the problem first was the man they removed. Before Alonso coached a competitive match for Real Madrid, the warning was already there. This was never simply about tactics. It was about authority. At Leverkusen, Alonso had built a team where every player moved like one piece of a larger machine. The wingbacks attacked, the midfield controlled, the forwards pressed, the defenders stepped forward without fear. Nobody was bigger than the structure. That was the secret, not magic, not luck. Structure. In 2023-24, Leverkusen went unbeaten across the entire Bundesliga season. 28 wins, 6 draws, 0 defeats. They won the Bundesliga for the first time in club history. They won the DFB Pokal. They reached the Europa League final. That was not a miracle built on vibes. That was a warning to Europe. Alonso's football only worked when talent accepted discipline. So, when he arrived in Madrid, the question was never, can Xabi coach? The question was, can Madrid's stars accept being coached? That is a very different question, because Real Madrid is not Leverkusen. Real Madrid is not a laboratory, it is a palace. And inside that palace, certain players are not just players. They are brands, they are symbols, they are political forces. Alonso knew this. He had played there. He had won there. He understood the white shirt. But he also understood something Madrid did not want to admit. A team can have the best individuals in the world and still lose its shape. A club can have superstar power and still lack leadership. And a dressing room can be full of champions and still have no one willing to sacrifice. That was Alonso's warning. Madrid did not need more talent. Madrid needed obedience to the team. Xabi Alonso was never a loud football man. He did not dominate games with speed. He dominated them with distance, timing, and intelligence. As a player, he understood space before others saw it. At Liverpool, he helped Rafael Benitez's team win the 2005 Champions League. At Real Madrid, he became part of the midfield foundation behind the club's 2014 Champions League triumph under Carlo Ancelotti. With Spain, he was part of a golden generation that won the 2010 World Cup and Euro 2012. So, when he became a coach, his football carried the same personality. Calm, precise, demanding. At Bayer Leverkusen, that identity became obvious. His team did not just attack beautifully, they controlled emotional chaos. They scored late goals because they kept believing in the structure. They defended with courage because the team moved together. That is why Madrid wanted him. Or at least, that is why Madrid thought it wanted him. Because Alonso was not hired to babysit a collection of attacking celebrities. He was hired to build a new era. And for a moment, it looked possible. His Madrid started with promise. There were wins, there was energy, there was the feeling of a project beginning. In October 2025, Real Madrid beat Barcelona 2-1 in La Liga. That should have strengthened Alonso's authority. Instead, it exposed the deeper issue. During that Clásico, Vinicius Junior reacted angrily after being substituted. He later apologized publicly to Madridistas, his teammates, the club, and the president. But the manager's name was absent. And sometimes in football, what is missing says more than what is said. That moment did not destroy Alonso. It revealed his position. He had the job title, but did he have the power? The world thought Alonso's problem was results, but the real problem was control. People looked at the defeats and saw a coach who could not manage Real Madrid. But maybe Alonso saw something deeper, a team that could not suffer together. At Madrid, every attacking superstar wants freedom. Freedom to drift, freedom to receive, freedom to decide, freedom to play by instinct. But modern football does not forgive freedom without balance. If one player does not track back, another must cover. If two players stay high, the midfield must run harder. If the press breaks, the defense gets exposed. And if nobody accepts the ugly work, the whole team becomes a highlight reel with cracks underneath. That was the battle Alonso walked into. Not against one player, against a culture. A culture where talent is protected faster than structure. A culture where the coach carries the blame before the stars carry the responsibility. A culture where the white shirt demands victory, but the dressing room does not always accept the sacrifice victory requires. This is what made Alonso dangerous. He was not asking Madrid to become smaller. He was asking Madrid to become serious. He was asking gifted players to run without the ball. He was asking stars to fit into a system. He was asking the club to choose the team over individual comfort. And that is the kind of request that sounds simple until it threatens the most powerful people in the room. Real Madrid did not misunderstand Alonso's tactics. It misunderstood his mission. He was not trying to limit the stars. He was trying to save them from themselves. The Spanish Super Cup final against Barcelona became the final image. January 11th, 2026. Real Madrid 2. Barcelona 3. A final lost. A project shaken. A manager suddenly standing alone. The next day, Alonso was gone. The official statement said mutual agreement, but football knows the language of powerful clubs. Sometimes mutual simply means the decision has already been made, and the tragedy is that Alonso's failure may have been the proof that he was right. Because if a coach asks for discipline and loses power, the problem is not only the coach. If a team filled with elite players cannot accept collective sacrifice, the problem is not only the tactics. If a club hires a system coach but refuses to protect the system, the problem is not only the results, it is identity. Real Madrid has always lived between two truths. The first truth is glamour, the stars, the Ballon d'Or names, the global attention, the impossible comebacks. The second truth is sacrifice. Casemiro covering space, Modric controlling pressure, Kroos calming chaos, Benzema connecting everything, Ramos holding the dressing room with force. The great Madrid teams were never only about stars. They were about stars who accepted roles. That is what Alonso knew. That is what his Leverkusen team proved. That is what Madrid forgot. And when he tried to bring that truth back, the club looked at the discomfort and called it failure. Maybe Alonso was not sacked because he was wrong. Maybe he was sacked because being right came too early. Xabi Alonso's Real Madrid story was short. Too short to become a dynasty. Too painful to be called a success. But some football stories are not measured by trophies. Some are measured by what they reveal. And Alonso revealed something Madrid could not hide. Talent can win games, but structure wins eras. Stars can create moments, but sacrifice creates teams. And at Real Madrid, the most dangerous man is not always the one who loses. Sometimes it is the one who tells the truth before the club is ready to hear it. Alonso arrived with a vision from the future. Pressing, balance, collective responsibility, no exceptions. Madrid answered with the oldest temptation in football. Protect the stars, change the coach, move on. But football has a cruel memory. If the same problems return under the next manager, if the same space is open, if the same players are asked to carry too much, if the same dressing room searches for leadership again, then Alonso's time will not look like a failure. It will look like a prophecy. Because maybe he was never the problem. Maybe he was the warning. And Real Madrid did what proud clubs often do when the truth becomes uncomfortable. They removed the messenger, but they could not remove the message. And if you want to understand another football story, where the world blamed the wrong man before the truth finally came out, watch the next video. Because sometimes, football does not punish the person who failed. It punishes the people who refuse to listen.